Bismillah, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum, and welcome to the first episode of Ask Those Who Knows. This is a show where we answer all your questions, all the new Muslims' questions about different aspects of Islam, and we have some questions here prepared with us today, specifically about Ramadan. And with me I have our guest, Ismail Bullock. Welcome.
Good to be here.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah.
How's Ramadan going so far?
I always say Ramadan could be better. I never leave Ramadan, and this is a sign for some of the viewers as well who think like, oh, I'm useless. I always leave Ramadan saying to myself like, oh man, again, I could have done better in Ramadan, you know? So I think we all could do better in Ramadan, but alhamdulillah, at the same time, it's going good.
We still have a few days left. So
exactly. And there were some questions actually, I believe, that probably came up on the 10 nights of Ramadan. So we want to, first of all, point out that inshallah, once we upload this video, the team will put in the description a link to a video that talks about the benefits of Ramadan in general.
Right.
So anyone who had questions of what are the benefits of Ramadan, why do we fast? And there's another link there, which is making the most of the last 10 nights, which will also encourage them what are the last 10 nights and what they should do. So
Amazing.
that will cover any questions that people had. We'll put those in the link.
Yeah, that's great, because we have very specific questions here regarding a few things during Ramadan. So I'm thinking let's just go through it, and we'll see how it goes. Bismillah. So here's the first question. So in the first 10 days of Ramadan, some they eat a date with water, and after the next 10 days again, they drink water and eat dates, and then next again finish 10 of water and dates is they put a little salt, water, and dates. Is that actually allowed, or is it just superstition practiced by some Muslims in their countries? So this, I haven't heard this one before.
I haven't heard that one as well.
Yeah, this
it definitely, Allahu Alam, it definitely sounds, first of all, that it is some strange practice where they maybe believe that there's something behind it. So if it's from that perspective, if it's something where people believe that within the first 10 days you do this and then the next 10 days, then we'd say Islamically you shouldn't do that, because it's based upon something that there's no evidence, there's no hadith, there's no Quran. I don't think any of us, even if you look at it, it doesn't quite make sense anyway. You know, what would be the relevance of having at the last 10 days some salt, you know? So it could be a cultural practice. Maybe they've been told that if you have salt in the last 10 days, it gives you more energy for qiyam. I don't know. But there's nothing Islamically that says about that. So if it's a cultural thing where they believe that taking salt gives you more energy for qiyam, like drinking coffee, you know, then that's just a cultural thing. But if they have some kind of strange belief behind it based upon some old mother's tales or some fabricated hadith, then the person, you know, should avoid this. It really depends on, I don't know which country this is from and where they do this. I believe it's possibly because I think I actually saw one of these questions similar to this. I haven't seen all of them in detail, but I saw this question, and I think the original question was, in the end, was in Tagalog, the Filipino language. So it could possibly be some practice of some Filipino Muslims, but it depends. We need to know really what is the reason. If it's a belief, they believe this is from Islam and there's a reward behind doing it, and it's a sunnah, then we have to say, where is the evidence for this? We've never heard of anything like this. And, you know, alhamdulillah, many of us now, we have been Muslim for many years, and we're active with many scholars who practice the sunnah very well, and we've never come across anything like this. I mean, you probably yourself have never ever heard of anything.
This first time.
It sounds like a very specific cultural thing. So in a nutshell, if they believe it to be something from Islam, then this should be avoided, because you're falling into innovation and going against the sunnah and made up things. If they believe some superstitious thing and it goes against Islamic belief that if you don't do this, something happens, obviously stay away from it. If it's just a cultural thing where they believe salt gives you energy, a bit like, you know, in the last 10 days you should drink a cappuccino because you'll be stronger in qiyam, then this is just like taking nutrients, right? But it sounds like the first 10 days, the second 10 days, that it's not related to health, it's related to some kind of superstition.
And I'm thinking, like, just, you know, the viewers might have questions related to this one. You know, they have like, oh, I heard this, I heard that, and it can be confusing to kind of filter all of these questions through. Like, how would we know if this is actually from Islam or not? Like you said, there's
I mean, I think maybe this particular question, if the brother or sister who put this forward would like to maybe in the comments clarify exactly where and how and what these people who do this, what do they say is the basis for doing this? Why are they doing this? But like I said, the fact that they're mentioning 10 and then 10 and then 10 and it slightly changes, it definitely sounds like they believe that there's some kind of Islamic practice, which there isn't, you know?
Right.
So for that, as a general rule, stay far away from it.
Okay.
Because, you know, it seems definitely it's leaning 99% in the direction of they believe this is from Islam.
Yeah, so like what you're saying is, since there's no Islam, like basis in Islam, religiously, don't do it.
Exactly.
But if it is
I could come now and say, people could start saying in the first 10 days, break your fast with dates and water. The next 10, dates and yogurt drink. The next 10, dates and a chocolate bar. You know, why?
Yeah.
And then they pushing this as this is how it should be done. Then there's something strange behind that, right? They're inventing something new. If someone's, like I said to you, says in the last 10 days you want to be strong for Qiyam, drink a lot of coffee. That's just common sense, right? Nobody would say, but this whole idea of having 10 and then 10 and then 10, it sounds like they're trying to base it upon some kind of correct practice, which is, you know, it isn't. Wallahu alam.
Interesting, yeah. Okay, let's go. So this second question is, how does this exercise or this show help a newly converted Muslim?
Okay, so they said exercise, so we assume that they mean the show. Well, sometimes new Muslims have questions. You know, they become a Muslim, alhamdulillah, at the center. We try to provide support. There's a lot of Muslims, as we know, hundreds of them becoming Muslim every month. So it's not always easy to have that regular one-on-one or face-to-face be there whenever there's a question. Especially those kind of... So the idea behind the show is that there may be questions that the new Muslim doesn't know the answer to, would like to know the answer to. It doesn't always come up in your normal standard lessons when you're learning about the 5 pillars of Islam. Like that one, for example, we just had question number 1, a very unique, strange question that person wouldn't necessarily find it in one of our online courses, for example. So this is the whole idea, to have a way that the new Muslim, and sometimes a new Muslim may be embarrassed to ask a question. So when he can fill it on a link, he may ask the kind of questions that he may feel embarrassed, shy. He may think, oh, this person's asking a silly question. So it's just to make things easier for them. And it's just another door we're trying to open at the center for the new Muslims.
MashaAllah, Mubarak. And a question I have in regards to that, if someone's watching this, have a question they want to ask, and they, like you said, they might be shy, where can they submit these questions?
Well, now we will be, inshallah, what we'll be doing is every month at the moment, it'll be on a monthly basis, we'll be sending into the groups the links to put their questions, and we'll be having similar one, just like we've done this in English. There's one in Tagalog, there's one in Urdu or /Hindi. So we'll be doing this monthly.
Great, mashallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, so next one is, how does giving charity from the first day of fasting differ from giving charity during the last 10 days before the end of Ramadan?
Well, okay, so when it comes to the last 10 nights of Ramadan, as we know, specifically one of those nights is Laylatul Qadr. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, yes, there is different statements. It could be that it's on an odd night, for example, that we know. And there's difference of opinion. There's even differences of opinion sometimes, which is really the odd night. Is it the 21st, 23rd, or is it the 20th? Based upon the fact that the night in Islam, the night is considered, like now today was the 23rd day, but now after Maghrib, they call it the 24th night. Because in Islamic calendar, or in Islamic calendar, when Maghrib comes in, they call it the night. So even amongst Arabs, when they say Jum'ah, when it's Thursday night, they call it Laylatul Jum'ah. They'll call it the night of Friday, meaning it's the night that Friday joins in. So some of the scholars even say that. Is it this one or is it that one? But we do know the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the final messenger. If he did know exactly what day it was, he did not tell us, for example. And he himself would spend the last 10 nights in worship. So this is a sign to us that the Prophet ﷺ didn't specifically know necessarily exactly which night it was. There was some strong hadith that it's the 27th night, and a lot of people just take that for granted. But the real question is, if the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, didn't take it for granted, then why would we? He would spend 10 nights of worship, and he would say to his wife, Aisha radiallahu anha, if you find, meaning if you happen to be, there in ibadah, and it's the night, Laylatul Qadr, throughout those 10 days, then you say that famous dua, Allahumma innaka afuwan تحب العفو فاعف عني. You know, Allah, you are the one who pardons and often forgives, and you love to do so, so pardon me and forgive me. So those 10 days, one of those days, inshallah, is Laylatul Qadr. So if you, for example, are giving charity every day in the last 10 nights, if you're praying Qiyam al-Layl, if you're reading Quran, you're doing any kind of good deed, you, inshallah, no doubt, will be doing that on one of the nights. One of those nights will be Laylatul Qadr, and you will be giving charity if you do it every day in the last 10 nights. You'll definitely make it, inshallah, or worship or Quran on the Laylatul Qadr. And as we know in the Quran, it says, many of the new Muslims may have learnt that chapter, it says Laylatul Qadr khayrun min alfi shahr, that it's better than 1,000 months, and that's approximately 83 years. So that's why the reward is better in the last 10 days, in the sense of when you do it in the last 10 days, you're guaranteed, inshallah, to be doing it as well on Laylatul Qadr. So this is the difference. You get rewarded like you've given charity for 83 years, like you prayed for 83 years, like you read Quran for 83 years. Maybe many of us won't even live for 83 years. So it's like more than a lifetime of reward in just one night. Whereas at the beginning of Ramadan, it's just the reward that you get in Ramadan, because the scholars mentioned that when you're in the when you're in Ramadan or in any good times and you do good deeds, the reward is multiplied than if you were to do it outside. So if you gave charity outside of Ramadan, there's a certain reward, for example. And we know Islamically that whenever you do a good deed, the very minimum you get, inshallah, is 10 times the reward, up to 700 times, and sometimes to a countless amount of reward. But in Ramadan, it's even higher, because you're in a time which is a special time, a blessed time. Just like if you were to go to Mecca and you commit a sin, it would consider to be worse because you do it in such a good place than if you were to do it somewhere else. Right. So that's why the last 10 nights, specifically because the last 10 nights, one of them is Laylatul Qadr, that the reward is much better, whether it's charity, prayer, whatever it may be.
Sure. The next question is, why do we sometimes eat at 6 p.m. and then sometimes they say, okay, I think what they mean is that sometimes you eat 6 p.m. and sometimes you eat later, and the time keeps changing.
Basically, because as we know as Muslims, when we fast just before the sun rises, just before the call to prayer, which is before sunrise, and then we break our fast when the sun sets. Now the sunset doesn't stay the same, as we all know that sometimes it gets darker in the winter sooner than it does in the summer. So as this time changes slightly every day, the time of breaking the fast will be, because that is our that is the guideline to when to break the fast. The guideline is not, for example, 6 p.m. forever.
Right.
So you may be in a country where 6 p.m. is like half a day. You haven't even got to the end of the day yet. So it's not based upon the time specifically. It's based upon when sun sets. When the sun sets, just before the sunset, when they make the call to prayer for the Maghrib prayer, when that time begins, is where we break our fast. So for us, it could be 6 p.m. today, it could be 6:30 by the end of Ramadan. We know we started Ramadan, it was like 6:19.
Yeah.
And now it's
like
6:30.
Yeah.
And in the morning, we were eating up until before the beginning of Ramadan, until like 5:27, 5:28. Now we kind of stop around 5:15, depending on which emirate you're in. So this is why it changes. It changes based upon... Just like our prayer times change. As this new Muslim brother or sister will notice as well, that we may pray Maghrib prayer when the sun sets at a certain month at 5:30 p.m. and it may be later on 6:30 p.m. like it is now. So this is why it changes.
So it's not based on the time, but the sun when it's setting. Okay.
So somebody could be fasting in if Ramadan happened to be December in the few years' time, and you're in the UK, for example, or Europe, you may be fasting. Stop eating at 7 a.m. and breaking your fast at 3:30 p.m. because it gets dark at 3:30. So for them, they would break their fast at 3:30. But we wouldn't in Emirates, where it gets dark for us at 6 o'clock, say, oh, I'm going to break it now because it's 3:30 in the UK. So it's based upon wherever you are when the sun set.
Makes sense. And you need to follow where you are, right? Like
That's right, yeah.
Got it. And the next question is, if I have to take medication during Ramadan, do I have to wait until I finish my fasting?
Obviously, always seek a doctor's advice. But generally speaking, it depends what the medicine is. There's some medicines that maybe someone's got a really serious illness that if they don't take that medicine, they could collapse, they could have some kind of seizure, then they need to consult a doctor. And of course, if the doctor, a trustworthy, reliable doctor, preferably a Muslim who understands the importance of fasting, and they said, no, you can't, you literally cannot go without that medicine, then they would be from those people who are excused until they recover. And if they never recover, then all they have to do is every day that they can't fast Ramadan, so they can't fast the whole Ramadan, and they're not expected to ever kind of leave this medicine. They must take it for the rest of their life to keep this illness under control. Then they would just feed one needy person every day. Okay. So they would feed 30 people every day, one person, and they wouldn't have to make up the fast. If they got better later on, then they would have to make up that fast. If they expect to take this medicine for a year or two and get better, then when they're better, they make up the fast.
Okay. But what if it's not the case that they can stay away from the medication during the day?
For example, somebody may have blood pressure medicine or cholesterol or something.
Allergy.
Something that they can take right early in the morning, and that's fine. Yeah. Or a lot of the medicines that say to you, a lot of the medicine they tell you to take anyway, they tell you take one in the morning, one in the evening, and fasting doesn't stop you from doing that. So if you have one at 5 a.m. and then you have the next one at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
But if it's, like I said, specific, where that person doesn't take it, they're going to collapse or something serious is going to happen,
like a danger.
Then they have to seek a reliable doctor who knows about fasting, preferably Muslim, and won't just say to them like, oh yeah, forget about fasting, because to them fasting is, it's nothing important.
Right. But if they're not in that position, they should wait until they're not fasting, right? And if they...
if it's straightforward medicine, like some people, blood pressure medicine is important, but nothing will happen if you don't take it lunchtime, you take it in the evening. As long as you take one of those tablets or two of those tablets in the 24 hours, you're okay. Doesn't make a big difference if it's morning or afternoon or evening. Yeah,
so if they can stay away, they should stay away. Otherwise, they would break their fast.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah, interesting. And what about... the question's not here, but I'm thinking...
there's one interesting point to mention, though.
Yeah.
If the person takes a medicine which is like a pain-relieving injection, some people, they might have to have injections regularly. I don't know, maybe like Profene or some other kind of Voltaren or whatever it is, because they have some painful rheumatism or whatever it may be. Yeah. So they have to have 3 or 4 of these injections a day, for example.
Right.
For that kind of scenario, there's not a problem, because this is not putting any kind of nutrients. But if they were to have a glucose injection, which fills your body with, it's like you're having a glass of like glucose, it'll give you energy and power, then this would break the fast, even if it's an injection into your body, because it's giving nutrients into your body. But if it's an injection that is just a painkiller, it does not do anything to your body. It doesn't make your body get energy or quench your thirst or take the place of nutrients. It's just an injection of a painkiller.
So it depends on the medication. Yeah. Some medication, like you said, it can be...
If you take anything in your mouth, the fast is broken 100%.
Even like spray or...
anything that goes into your system from your mouth, could be also from your nose. If you had a very powerful nose spray that went down and dribbled into your throat a lot, then that's a problem as well. So you have to avoid anything going in. But if it's, like I said, it really depends on the necessity. And if you have to do it, then in reality you don't even have to fast until you're free of that illness.
I remember my first Ramadan, I have a terrible hay fever. And the first Ramadan I was fasting, it was in Sweden, and that was like in the summer. A lot of, the hay fever was very strong. So usually I took the pills at suhoor, and the nose spray I took during that time. And then I could stay during the day without it. And then right when Maghrib, when we break the fast, you can take the nose spray again. Because sometimes they last for I think 12 hours, 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is, Assalamu alaikum. What are the last 10 nights in Ramadan, and how do we know that they have come?
Okay, well, for that one, as we mentioned in the beginning, we have the link which we're going to put at the bottom, which will talk about the last 10 days, the importance of the last 10 days, what to do in the last 10 days. How do you know they come? It's based upon, we know when Ramadan started, so you can work out when the last 10 nights are, based upon that. But for more details, I think what is the virtue of those 10 days, what should we do, and how should we act, we're going to have in the description, inshallah, the short 9-minute kind of short speech that I did about that. They can watch that, inshallah, to fill them in.
Everything about the last 10 days.
About everything about it, but it's summarized of why and what, and an encouragement to make the most of the last 10 days.
But could you say that it starts the 20th of Ramadan, or is it 21st, or what would you say?
Well, it would be the 20th of on the day, but as we mentioned earlier, when the night kicks in, when it gets dark, it's considered to be the 21st night.
Right. Okay. So the next question is the last 10 days again. And this is if a woman gets her menstruation cycle, what can she do to make the most out of those days?
Okay, that's a good one because that won't be in the 9-minute
Okay.
clip. For the woman, I mean, she can make the adhkar. She can make dua. She can. She could watch Islamic lectures, seek knowledge. She can. She can, in theory. Actually, that's a more of a difference of opinion in the sense of using the phone to read the Quran. Some allow it, some don't allow it. But to be safe, we could say she could stick to those things. Making.
What if we mention the things she should not do?
And then she should not be like. Obviously, she can't pray.
Right. Yeah.
And she can't hold the mushaf. Some scholars discuss whether or not if it's a phone and she's not, she's scrolling on the phone, but she's not touching with her hand or any actual Arabic text. So maybe there's a scroll button where you keep going down. But to be safe, it's better to avoid that. But like I said, there's dua. This is one of the.
Can she listen to the Quran?
For sure, listen to the Quran. Yeah, for sure. And also the real main thing to do in those last 10 days is to keep saying that dua. Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbul afu fa'afu anni. Allah, you're the most pardoning, the one who loves to pardon. So pardon me, forgive me. So this is the thing that is the kind of the key thing. And people often mistake as well the Qiyam al-Layl, which is known to be, people assume it means standing up at night in prayer. Qiyam al-Layl, in fact, can be anything that you stay awake at night to do. So she could take an Islamic book in her own language and say, you know what, I'm a bit rusty on I'm a new Muslim still. I didn't quite master, or I didn't quite memorize the bits of the prayer. What's a must, and what, some things in the prayer, if I miss this, what do I do? Let me take a book now that I was given at the Islamic Information Center, for example, and I'll use this time in the last 10 nights to go through the New Muslim Guide again, or to go to the Islamic Information Center's level 1 course and do it again to refresh my knowledge. That's amazing worship. One of the best things you can do, as we know, worship is seeking knowledge. So doing the seeking knowledge in the last 10 nights, that's something that the sister could do in that scenario.
And it's also a reminder for the brothers. It's not just about the prayer and then you go to sleep. You can also engage in these acts of worship. So the next question is, how much do I need to pay for Zakat al-Fitr, or I need quantity of food to give, and for who and when? So this is about the Zakat al-Fitr.
So Zakat al-Fitr, you could say the strong scholarly opinion, even though here in the UAE they do also say it's allowed to give it in money, but what's easier, I think, as well here especially, is it's approximately just under 3 kgs. So to be safe, each person. So if I'm a man at home and I have a wife and I have children, and they're under my care, they haven't got married and moved out, then for each one of us, I would take 3 kgs of rice. There's a specific like measurement, like handfuls, like a mud in the Islamic referencing, where you take 2 hand scoops, but it basically equals to about 3 kgs per person. So there are some charity organizations who say, like, you donate to us, we will do that. So you pay them, and then they find the needy people, or yourself. It depends where you live, but you probably know that there are neighborhoods where there are many labor workers. They all live together in accommodation. You know it, you can see it. You could just knock on their door, or even leave it outside on the doorstep, and they'll come and take it. But the idea is it's for people who are less fortunate. So you just generally know that people in that area, from the way the houses are, from the fact that lots of people live together, that they're not on a high income. You don't need to go into some very deep kind of research. It's not like quite as like the zakah that you take from your wealth, where you have to make sure it fits 8 categories. This is a bit more wide, So you can just know that particular area. Or if you want to be 100% sure, you can go to the charity like Darul Birr Society, for example, and pay online, and then they would take that, and they will then buy the rice, and they will give it to the people that they know 100% are poor, because they have files of people who are qualifying for that kind of thing.
Right. And when should you do that? Like, what
You should do it. The
is there a
scholars say you
deadline?
can. Well, they say you can do it a day or two maximum before, and
Before what?
before the Salat al-Eid.
Oh, the prayer.
Yeah, so you should do it before the Salat al-Eid. And I don't know if this question is going to come up later, but if someone forgot, for example, as well, then if they forgot they just literally forgot, wasn't intentional, they didn't say like, oh yeah, whatever, and then, oh, it's too late now, they would be sinful, because it's the correct opinion is it's an obligation upon the person who can afford it. Now, if you're a father and you can't afford it yourself, you probably need to get yourself a Zakat al-Fitr, right? But if you know that you're not from that category, you can afford to buy this, then it's obligatory for you, and if you're an adult who's outside of your house, etc., to pay that, and it needs to be done before. But if somebody forgot and they realized they were so busy with things, they fell asleep, whatever, they woke up, it's time to pray, they went to pray, I didn't give Zakat al-Fitr. Here the scholars say that there's no punishment, or there's no sin, or no blame, because it was an unintentional forgetfulness. But you still should go and give it, because the obligation is still there.
So they give it when they get
As
reminded.
soon as they remember, even if it's after the Eid prayer, because they genuinely forgot, not they purposely delayed it and then said, I'll do it after Eid, I'm too busy, kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now the next question is itikaf. So the question is, how do a female perform itikaf in Ramadan?
Okay, so when it comes to itikaf, some people may have this idea that women can't do itikaf. I remember this question was asked to our Sheikh Aziz ibn Farhan al-Anazi, and I remember him answering in quite some detail, but he mentioned that the women in the time of the Prophet ﷺ did itikaf, and then the Prophet ﷺ came to the masjid and he saw lots of tents, and they looked a bit like exaggerated, a bit big. So he said, along the lines of, do you come here to compete? Or do they come here for Allah's remembrance? So he was indirectly saying to them, like, he could see that the women had started to compete with who's got the nicer looking tent, kind of thing. So he told them to remove the tents. But after the Prophet ﷺ's death, the women continued to do itikaf. The Sahaba were there. No one ever said to the women, itikaf is not for the women. The Prophet ﷺ banned it. That was a particular event. He wanted to teach them a lesson, that this is not a place for competing who's got the nicest tent or who's got the biggest tent. Right. So women, it's fine for them to go to itikaf, but there's some kind of things you have to bear in mind. Like, if the woman's married and she's, maybe then her husband's rights would come over itikaf, because the husband's rights is obligatory and itikaf is a sunnah. So she should take permission from her husband. Maybe the husband needs her for whatever he might need her for. So she should take permission for that from him. And she should try and make sure there's a place where there's some kind of, alhamdulillah, masajid should always be like that. But it's a place where there's not a chance of men seeing her or free, or free mingling or whatever it may be, which alhamdulillah shouldn't generally happen in a mosque, alhamdulillah, here in the UAE. But that's the main thing. And of course, even if she's at home, maybe her parents don't want her to go. She shouldn't take that stance of no. They could be non-Muslim parents. She might say, I want to go and stay in the mosque for 10 days. I think it's going to be good for me. And they say, oh no, we don't want you to leave the house and be out of the house. She shouldn't say no, they're non-Muslims, I'm a Muslim, i'tikaf. Obeying your non-Muslim parents is wajib, as long as they're not making you do something which is forbidden and shirk. And going to i'tikaf is not forbidden. So here, obeying them is more ibadah than doing i'tikaf, and takes priority over the sunnah of i'tikaf. So those are the general guidelines if the sister wants to do i'tikaf.
Okay, mashallah. The next question is, it's about donation. So every month we transfer 100, no currency mentioned, to a fund called Donation to UNHCR in Dubai. But I sometimes have doubts about such funds. Maybe it would be better to give this money to people we know personally who truly needs it. Thanks.
That's a good question. I mean, I'm not familiar. UN, I think this is the United Nations,
UN.
Humanitarian Charitable something maybe.
Yeah.
So I'm
I
sure
think it's for refugees. It's a refugee
I'm sure
program,
inshallah, that when the money goes to them, especially as we know how Dubai operates here. They wouldn't let people, and I mean, I'm sure it goes to the right people, but of course, if the person themselves, it's their money. If they decide they wanted to give to somewhere else they feel more comfortable with, or if they feel that they have some neighbors or some people they know who are struggling and they want to give the money to them directly, I guess there's no problem Islamically from that perspective. They know their kind of situation really better than, you know. And there's no right and wrong. You want to give to them, it's great. If you know someone personally who's a friend or a family member that you know that they're struggling, and you say, I don't want to give my 500 dirhams or my 100 dirhams to them, I want to give it to these people I know personally, that would also make sense, because there is that principle in Islam that you give charity. Charity starts at the home, as in the people around you. So if you were living in a country where there's poor people right in front of you, you wouldn't say, I'm going to send my money to Africa, where right in front of your doorstep there are people who need it. You'd go closer to home before you go outside. So yeah, that was so I would recommend that generally.
Okay, absolutely. And the next one is during the fast, if you sleep and you have a dream about sexual intercourse with a woman, does that mean your fast has spoiled or not? So I think, like, the question is if they had this dream. I don't know if they mentioned a wet dream, but
yeah. So if someone had a dream like this, for example, whether they, you know, sometimes they have a wet dream where the you have some kind of ejaculation when you're sleeping, right, and the semen or the sperm comes out, then all they have to do is just to make ghusl. So there's no effect on their fasting, because it's out of their control. Now, if they sat there maybe and they imagined a woman and they start to feel aroused and they can feel something's coming, but they keep imagining and they're wide awake. So it's almost like, you know, like they were, I don't know, stimulating themselves, whether they did without even touching. Maybe that happens to people, I don't know. And then that happened, then this is a different scenario, because they just kept thinking and thinking. So it's almost like
it's they fantasizing.
Yeah, and it's almost like they were masturbating without physically touching, but they mentally did it. Then this person would have to make up their fast. They would be sinful, and they would have to make up that fast.
But that's when they're awake, not sleep.
Yeah, if they slept, they have no control over these kind of things. You just wake up and you'd have a bath. If there was no liquid that came out, whether male or female, then you would just get on with your daily life. Nothing would change.
Okay. You continue fast, like
because you're asleep. It's only if you're awake and you purposely do something like that that you'd have to, your fast would be, especially if something, if you ejaculated, basically. If the person had those kind of thoughts but didn't get to that stage, then they would have done something sinful during their fast. The reward would be reduced of the fast, because they did something haram. Just like if they backbited or swore, it wouldn't break their fast directly, but their reward would be reduced. But unless they have that process of ejaculating, whatever, then they wouldn't have to, like, their fast wouldn't be broken. That's even if they're awake.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one is Assalamu alaikum. During the Laylatul Qadr, when one is not able to go to the masjid prayer because of working nights, and there's a known nearby masjid, can you do it by yourself, and how will you do it? Assalamu alaikum. So I think this person means that they want to pray they want to pray the night prayer, but because of work they cannot pray in the masjid.
I mean, if they have some kind of, you know, like long working hours and there's no masjid, I mean, we'd always say to them, try and make a bit of an effort to go to the masjid, especially at least on the odd nights, you know, like the 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, 29th nights. But if they're really struggling, they don't have a car, the mosque is really far, then they can just do what we mentioned earlier when we talked about what would the woman do. So obviously they can pray, but they can do things like they can pray, keep praying 2 rak'ah, whatever surahs, whatever chapters you know from the Quran. And when you're in the prostration, because the Prophet Muhammad said that the closest the person is to his Lord, meaning in piety and connection in the spiritual sense, is when he's in prostration. So you can keep repeating that dua I mentioned earlier, Allahumma innaka afuwan tuhibbul afu fa'afu anni, in your sujood. You can read Quran, you can read Islamic books to get knowledge. All of these things are great if you're unable to get to the mosque.
So you can still pray if you're unable.
You just pray by yourself.
Yeah, okay, mashallah. And here's probably the longest one. So let's see what. So it says, I have been at the mosque for Jummah prayers today, but while I was standing for Sunnah prayer, a man to the left of me also stood. We started prayer, but each individually. I finished the 2 Sunnahs, only to see the man going for 4 rakat. So this person who asked the question did 2. The man to the left did 4. When we started the Jummah prayer, we went for 2 rakats. While a friend taught me how to perform the prayer, he said Jummah is 4 rakat. So now my question is, how many rakat is Jummah? And do I have to perform the Salatul Dhuhr before Jummah prayers? Or is it the same prayer named Jummah? Because it's mandatory to be prayed in a group if possible. So I think the confusion here is, is Jummah a separate prayer? Do they need to pray Dhuhr before?
First of all, when Jummah is a separate prayer. There are some people, this is not the... there's no real evidence for this. Some people, for example, there's no specific sunnah before the Jummah prayer. So you come into the masjid and you do that the sunnah prayer, which is whenever you enter into mosque, the Prophet Muhammad would pray 2 units of prayer. It's like the prayer of entering the mosque and before you sit down. So you would do that, but there's no specific 2 or 4 units sunnah prayer like there is for Dhuhr for Jummah. If somebody arrives early to the masjid, though, and they want to do nawafil or nafil prayer, voluntary prayer, 2 units, 2 units, 2 units, just to pass the time, this is okay. Why? Because this is general. So like, for example, me and you on a daily basis, I've prayed Dhuhr, I go to work, I've got a bit of time, I said, let me go and do 6 rak'ah of nafil prayer, 2, 4, 6, 2 units, 2 units, 2 units. That's allowed. This is because there's no restriction. It's a general, voluntary 2 rak'ah prayer that somebody wants to pray. But specifically before Jummah, there's no sunnah. But some people, which is a minority, they think there is a sunnah. So he could have gone to a mosque where those people think that there is a specific sunnah, that as soon as the adhan is called, you get up and you pray 2 sunnah. But this is not the correct practice as such. And then, but afterwards, there is a sunnah of 4 rak'ah being done, but in the 2 units and 2 units. But yes, there's no Dhuhr prayer on the day of Jummah. Jummah takes the place of Dhuhr. If you missed Jummah, then you have to pray Dhuhr. If you go into the masjid and you catch the last unit of prayer before they come up from the ruku', before they come Sami Allahu liman hamidah, you catch the second unit before he finishes the ruku', then it means you've caught the prayer, you just get up and you make 1 more unit. But if you got to the prayer where he's already said Sami Allahu liman hamidah in the second unit of the prayer, the second rak'ah, then
in the Jummah
prayer, even though you caught the end of it, but you didn't catch the second ruku', he'd already come up and gone to the next processes, then you have to get up and do the whole 4 of Dhuhr, even though you caught some of the prayer, but you didn't catch the unit. Because the unit, how do you catch the unit? By joining it before the person comes up from ruku' when they say Sami Allahu liman hamidah.
When they're bowing, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. Okay. I think they meant the question was specifically about before Jummah. So I think the person...
Yeah, there's no specific sunnah.
No, yeah. And though, if they pray Jummah, they don't have to pray Dhuhr.
That's right.
Okay. Here we got one for Zakat al-Fitr, forgetting to give Zakat.
So we already answered that one. I had a feeling that might come up because what came in my mind, because people often ask, what if I forget? Or what if I unintentionally, didn't get in time to do it or something?
Yeah. So if you're watching, send it off before you forget, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is the day of Ramadan. If you're sick, is it allowed to cut your fasting or not?
Again, that goes how sick you are. If you're so sick that fasting would really be hard, would make you much worse. Like somebody said, for example, I got food poisoning. So right before the day of fasting, I've been throwing up and having diarrhea the whole night. So this person is like dehydrated. They're really unwell. It would not be wise maybe for them if they're now able to take fluid to fast, for example. They could end up getting very weak and collapsing because they're already dehydrated. Now they're able to maintain fluid, like they can drink fluid without throwing up, then they should focus on recovering for that day, for example. But it really depends. It's not just like, I have a bit of a headache, break my fast. There has to be that limit. It's very difficult because it's a person, it's more of a personal thing. In the sense of, maybe someone has a headache, but someone else gets very, very bad migraines that they can't open their eyes and they feel like they got nausea, they feel dizzy, and they have to take, these will not get better because they have a history of migraines, so they have to take powerful medicine. Then this person would say, okay, if that happened to you or you're fasting, you could break the fast, for example. But not everyone who just has a headache or has a bit of a cold.
Yeah.
So the person kind of judge themselves, and they have to be honest with themselves as well, you know. As much as they can, they have to try and ask a doctor, like, should I break a fast? If they have the access to a doctor. But I think all of us deep down know that, could I fast? Yeah, I probably can. It's just a bit of a blocked up nose, or
And
it's
maybe
a bit of a tickly throat.
And maybe sometimes they can start the fast to see how it goes. If
exactly.
it's really, really difficult, they can break it.
Yeah.
So, you know, they can see if they can, because sometimes you can feel very sick, but you continue the fasting and like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
You're just like a little bit tired.
And also sometimes as well is the fact that the person may say to themselves, you know what, I don't like to do this as a habit, but because I'm feeling a bit rough, I'm taking a day off work, I'm just going to sleep most of the day. I'm going to wake up to pray, but I'm going to sleep to recover from this, to relax from, to try and recover from this illness. But at the same time, if you're still fasting, you're not going to notice it because you're sleeping.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So you could kind of maybe in the middle like that, rather than just completely break the fast.
Right. Okay. And the next one, so this something we already answered. In which day during Ramadan is it Laylatul Qadr?
We already discussed that, yeah.
And the next one is, how long does one have to cover to be considered as a traveler and is forgiven from fasting within that day, or he or she has traveled? So
I get that, yeah.
Yeah. I think you understand.
I'll just tackle it from the most common angles when it comes to this.
Yes.
So first of all, the person means like, what's the distance of traveling? There's many opinions actually on how do you qualify as a traveler, but the two mainstream ones you could say, the two most common ones that the scholars mention is either it's about 80 something, I think it's around 83 or something like that, 82 kilometers of distance, and then there's other one they say is based upon the custom. Me personally, when I've heard it, I lean towards the custom one.
Yeah,
so I may on a daily basis almost do 80 kilometers going backwards from work, but it would feel strange and wrong to join the prayers because it doesn't feel like it's far. But then there's some places you go that maybe only 100, but when you're driving there, the journey you're on, there's nothing left and right of you is just fields or just jungles or deserts. There's no civilization, this feels, even in custom, you say to the people, I'm traveling, where you going? I'm going to this place. Like if you're in Fujairah, you say I'm going to Abu Dhabi, nobody here in Emirates would say that's not travel. They're Abu Dhabi, yeah. They don't understand straight away, and they look at it as traveling, so you can join your prayer. Okay, so that means if you're considered to be a traveler, whether you say it's the 83 odd kilometers or it's what's known in custom. But none of them say, by the way, if it's known in custom, some strange community, they believe that 15 minutes down the road is traveling. No, we don't mean that. But we mean that kind of distance, like 83. And sometimes they say more. So it could be you're traveling 100 kilometers, but nobody in that country considers that to be travel. That's just a normal train journey to work in Sweden or in the UK.
Yeah,
that's
I think
nothing.
If you compare, like, let's say in the US, it can be massive distances, right?
Yeah,
for traveling.
in the same state.
Yeah.
And the person goes 120 kilometers, and you're not traveling, you're in Florida. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
But
in Sweden, it can be like where I'm from, like 20 minutes, you're in a different city, right? So it depends, like you said.
So it's really based upon, you can say the custom. Like even if where you're saying like now, if you went from this city to that city in Sweden, 20 minutes, you still wouldn't, nobody will say you're traveling. If you said, I've been traveling, where'd you go? I went 20 minutes across out of Stockholm to the next place or something like that. They'll be looking at you like, that's not traveling,
Yeah.
So it either has to be 83 as a minimum, or it could even be more than that if you're following the custom, where in the custom where you're from, when you get to like 150 kilometers or more, people look at it as being traveling. Whatever case you're going with, the concession of traveling, the real question comes, should you break your fast or not? Do you have the concession, like the permission from Allah, the allowance to break your fast? You do. Just being a traveler, you do. But what is the best thing to do? Say, for example, someone's going to be traveling for a few days. A lot of people, and maybe people who are watching, if they've been Muslim for a while, they can relate to this. When you do that, you find sometimes you don't end up making the fast when you think you're going to. It just gets delayed and delayed and delayed. No one is fasting around you. So you don't have that thing where everyone's next to you fasting. It's Ramadan. Everyone's fasting with me. So before you realize that next Ramadan has come, or years have gone by, and maybe you never make up the fast. So the scholars say, if you're able to do it, if you're able to handle it, it's better for you to fast.
Yep.
None of them will say to you it's haram to break the fast, because you fulfill the eligibility of being a traveler. But they will say if you can handle it, it's better for you to fast. And it's better that you don't break the fast, because you have the blessing, you have the blessed time of Ramadan, everyone's fasting around you, the possibility that you might not make it up. Now, if you're sick, of course, to the level that you can't fast, no scholar would say, just bear with it, even if you collapse, because it's Ramadan and you might not make it up. No, this is different. But here, if you're able to handle it, and the traveling is not going to really affect you, then they say it's better to fast.
Yeah.
So
And
that's how you should look at it. You know,
it's different today, like depending on how you travel, but most of us travel by maybe car or airplane. It's not that of a, traveling.
True. Even though the scholars do say that it doesn't make a difference necessarily on how comfortable it is. That the allowance is there, but as a person, like, hey, I'm going in a car, AC, comfortable journey. I'm going on a 1 hour plane flight. Then I can go and, if I'm tired, I can go and have a nap in the hotel between Dhuhr and Asr. I don't break my fast. You know yourself that you can do this. It's not a big hassle. Just say, hey, I'm traveling, break my fast. Even again, I haven't heard a scholar who says you're sinful, but they say the better thing and the most noble thing to do, if you're able to, is to continue the fast.
Okay.
Wallahu alam.
Okay, next one. And they ask, this is actually the last one, if I miss 2 prayers a day when I'm busy, is my fasting affected or not? If I'm fasting and I don't pray this night prayer, Taraweeh, is it fine, or I have to pray it every day?
Okay, so starting backwards, when it comes to Taraweeh, the Taraweeh is a voluntary sunnah prayer. No one has to pray it. And we cannot say that your fasting is reduced or you're not a good Muslim in Ramadan just because you didn't do Taraweeh. It's recommended. It's highly recommended, because it says if you join with the Imam at the beginning until he finishes with the dua at the end, it's like you prayed the whole night. So if you are a person who's a bit lazy to do other things and says, I've got work, I've got this is like you can literally go home and sleep and eat and chat with your family and just do stuff that's not really much worth. But it's written down like as if you're standing the whole night non-stop praying. So it wouldn't be advisable to miss it. If you can, try and do it at least as much as you can. Now, the other problem is, I would be to answer the question, is there any sins you do when you're fasting reduces the reward? And it's a big sin to miss prayers. Now, we understand some new Muslims are new. They're taking things step by step. They're trying their best. So we're not judging anybody. And there could be someone who became Muslim a couple of weeks ago. This is his first Ramadan. He's still trying to get the hang of the prayer. And we say, keep on. But we would emphasize that the prayer is very important. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he said that it is like the pillar. So we know the 5 pillars, obviously, all of us would have heard about as when we became Muslim. But he mentioned in another hadith, the kind of the main pillar. So after the Shahada, as we know, is the 5 daily prayers. And the Prophet Muhammad, he had a statement where he mentioned that whoever abandons it has committed disbelief. Now, we're not necessarily saying that means the person is a disbeliever now, but at the very least we can take from this statement of the Prophet Muhammad is it's very serious. You're borderlining here. So take care of the prayer. So I would be more telling the person to focus more, to re-ask themselves the question is like, rather than is my Ramadan my fasting accepted if I'm missing 2 prayers, you should be focusing on like, why am I missing those 2 prayers? Especially if they're living in the UAE. Alhamdulillah, there's always time and places to pray. Most companies will allow you to pray. There's petrol stations on the route. You can pray. You can park your car up somewhere safe, and you could probably find a place to pray. Even a petrol station doesn't have a prayer room. You could just pray in the parking area where they put air in the tires, out of the way of people, and you could just pray. So it's very difficult, especially living here, to justify not praying, to pray 2 days. And I'd say that the fact that this person, if they're a very new Muslim, the fact that they're, mashallah, taking the commitment to fast, I mean, they could say like, oh, I'm so hungry, I'm a new Muslim, let me just eat. So it shows that they have, mashallah, good commitment to the fast. So I would say that's fantastic, but the commitment of the prayer is more important than the commitment of the fast. That's why we have the pillars of Islam. They come in order.
Yeah.
First is the belief in the heart, because if you pray and you fast and you do zakat and you do hajj and you don't believe in Allah, it's useless.
Yeah.
So first you have the shahada, the testimony of faith. Then you have the prayer,
And
then you have
the fasting.
Yes, exactly. So great that they're committing to the fast, but I also say don't miss out on the opportunity of the prayer. And also, one thing that should always encourage us for the prayer is the Prophet Muhammad. He actually was asked about the prayer by some of his companions. And he said, imagine if you had a house. Right on the doorstep of your house, you have this river. And you go into this river and you wash yourself 5 times a day. He asked his companions, the Sahaba, will there be any dirt left on you? And they said, no, O Rasulullah. He said, this is the similitude, or this is the likeliness of the prayer. That, like the likeness of the prayer is that it's a way to cleanse yourself. And it's this way where you're always remembering Allah. So it's supposed to, there's a verse in the Quran that says that indeed the prayer stops you from falling into fahsha and munkar, like evilness and wickedness. Now somebody might say, but I know this Muslim guy who prays and he's a terrible guy. He's a bully. I've seen him beat people up and he swears and he's a horrible character. Then this prayer, for them, they're not doing it properly. They're not really praying like they should. They're not thinking when they're in the prayer. They're not thinking about what they're saying. They're not really concentrating, because if they're doing it properly, this has to have an effect. It doesn't mean nobody will ever sin, but they should not be someone who's praying 5 times a day and he's always rude, or he's always a thief, or he's always doing all these sins. This becomes, he's known to be that guy who's always drinking, or he's always whatever. This means there's a problem with the prayer. So I would advise them to really focus on the prayer. And again, especially most of these new Muslims obviously will be from our groups. I would say always reach out to your teacher who's allocated in those groups. And if you're struggling with the prayer or need advice, always reach out to the preachers at the center and ask them for their advice and these kind of things.
MashaAllah.
Allahu Alam.
Amazing. We cleared the whole list. Allah Mubarak.
MashaAllah.
Thank you so much.
Hopefully the first of many more to come.
Inshallah.
Of monthly episodes, inshallah.
And like you mentioned, if someone who's viewing this, they have a question, they just drop the question in the
they'll
groups.
be the groups, so they'll be posting every month the link for the following session where people can submit the questions, inshallah.
And does it always have to be related to Ramadan? It can
No, after Ramadan it will be just general questions that the new Muslims have.
Awesome.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. May Allah accept from us.
Ameen.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.